Good day, everyone. I'm Angela, the moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone to today's webinar. New Nacha Operating Rules changes for 2024 plus insight into 2026 changes. I want to introduce our presenter for today, Donna K. Olheiser.
Donna K. Olheiser, AAP, is the Vice President of Education Services and founder of Dynamic Master Sieve, LLC. She is an enthusiastic and energetic certified master trainer with over 14 years of experience. She has over 23 years of experience in the financial service industry. So I would now like to hand over to you, Donna.
Thank you, Angela, and welcome everyone. We're going to talk about the Nacha Operating Rules changes in 2024, and I know we're towards the end of 2024, but they're still equally important because sometimes people don't know about rules changes until later on after the fact, and then you just need to go back and make sure that you're in compliance with these rules. Then I'm also going to give you an insight into the 2026 changes because they kind of all go hand in hand. So as you can see, our agenda is jam-packed with information because there's a lot of stuff going on. There was a few years after the pandemic where not a whole lot was going on, but now in full force. Before I go into the minor rules changes that were effective in June of this year, or the rules changes that became effective on October 1st, which is just about 45 days ago, overview of how the ACH network works. ACH Operations Bulletins number 1 and 2 that were issued this year in 2024 because they have to do with the rules changes and a few other things. An Operations Bulletin is something that NACHA, being the National ACH Association, they put that information out there, and then we'll talk about what's coming up in 2026 because it's kind of a big deal. I shouldn't say kind of, it is a big deal. 5 basic participants in the ACH network. And you can see them on the slide in front of you right now. We have the originator, the ODFI, originating depository financial institution. We have the ACH operator. We have the RDFI, receiving depository financial institution. And we have the receiver. So the way it works is all ACH transactions begin with an originator who has some sort of relationship with the receiver. There are 2 ACH operators, the Federal Reserve Bank and the clearinghouse. So settlement versus funds availability. Settlement is when the Federal Reserve debits or credits the money to the respective RDFI or ODFI. And then funds availability is when, according to the Nacha Operating Rules, the RDFI is required to make the credit entries, the money available in the receiver's account. The processing schedule right from nacha.org section underneath the first royal blue row are 3 windows. These are the same day ACH windows. So when we talk about minor rules changes that went into effect in June of this year, so we'll go into the first rules change, and this is the general rule for web entries, again effective in June, and this has to do with consumer to consumer credits. Then we move on to the next rule change and definitions of originator. A person that has authorized an ODFI directly or through a third-party sender to transmit an entry to the receiver's account at the RDFI. Then we move on to the next rule change, again effective in June of this year. This is the one where they said none to minimal, none to nominal, the synonymous terms. Originator action on a notification of change. So let's talk about what a notification of change is first. An originating company, they're going to receive information from the ODFI about a notification of change. So we move on to data security requirements. So we move on to the use of pre-note entries. And again, this was one of those that had very minimal change, again effective in June. So then the next minor rule change is subsequent entries, a clarification where the term subsequent entries was in the rules and it didn't make sense. And again, effective in June. Let's talk about what subsequent entries means. So back in September of 2021, standing authorization was introduced into the Nacha Operating Rules. So then we move on to the risk management topic. So that was the minor rules changes that went into effect in June, and these went into effect about 45 days ago roughly. And they are part of a larger risk management package. So when we talk about R17, expanded use of return reason code R17. This is already being used in the industry. This new rule expanding R17 also includes a newly defined term, false pretenses. So there are benefits and impacts. Then we move on to the expanded use of R06. So first, let's talk about what R06 is. It's the ODFI is requesting a return. So the benefits, of course, so it's a big deal when it comes to impacts. Then we move on to funds availability exceptions, again effective about 45 days ago on October 1st. So now when we talk about funds availability in the Nacha Operating Rules, funds availability is 9 a.m. local RDFI time for an entry that sits in the warehouse. So I have an example. So of course there are benefits and impacts. Then we move on to the timing of the written statement of unauthorized debit. So before October 1st, the rules require the written statement of unauthorized debit be dated on or after settlement date of the entry. So the rule is intending to improve the process and experience when debits are claimed to be unauthorized. So of course there are benefits and impacts. So then we move on to the next one that kind of goes hand in hand with the written statement of unauthorized debit. So of course the benefits are, so let's look at an example. Oh, so that was the rules changes. Minor, right? Then we look at a couple of operations bulletins. One was put, well, they were both issued in July. Operations bulletin number 1 first. So remember, we just talked about the expanded use of R06. The extension applies only to the portion of the rule requiring a response by the RDFI. So there are 2 risk management rules that were approved with an effective date of Friday, June 19th. So we move on to Operations Bulletin number 2. And this is voluntary formatting standard for individual name field. So this is your takeaway from Operations Bulletin number 2, 2024. Continuing on with this individual name field, again, I'm giving you specifically the Nacha Operating Rule 3.1.2. So when we look at what's happening in 2026, March 20th of 2026, phase 1 of a risk management package is basically monitoring to phase 2, which is June 19th. And again, it's really June 22nd because June 19th is a federal holiday. Phase 2 is for anybody who didn't fit in the first threshold for phase 1. So that's all I have. Thank you. I want to extend my gratitude for those of you who attended my session today, and I'm hoping you found it to be beneficial. I look forward to seeing you on another session in the future to learn more about the rules or about anything in the ACH arena, in the ACH space. There's stop payments, there's exception processing, there's even Regulation E. There are so many different topics relating to electronic payments. Again, thank you so much for your attention today, and have a great rest of your day.
Once again, thank you, Donna. So that concludes the session for today. Thank you everyone for participating. You may all disconnect now. Have a great day ahead.